Here's the exact strategy on how you can go back on a diet after your maintenance phase and make it sustainable afterwards. So most people do a diet, they get into the maintenance phase, and that's what Autonomy is special for. We get people in shape and then we help them stay in shape forever. But naturally over the course of 10 to 20 years, this doesn't mean that you're going to be diet free just because you've done one diet and you've maintained it. Life happens, and mostly it's a swinging pendulum. When you finish a diet and you're maintaining, your body weight just never stays static. It's impossible because you've got Christmases, birthdays, Hanukkahs, Diwali, Ekadashi, all of these factors that go into it. That means that it's a sliding, swinging pendulum between a couple of kilos that you stay there. Over a 10 to 20 year period, when we're looking super long term, you're going to have a period of inconsistency. You're going to have a period where you may gain a little bit more weight than you're supposed to, and there will be specific reasons why you do that. Autonomy is never about you just staying at the same body weight and then it's done. It's about you knowing what you can do when you do pull it a bit too far, and then you can rein it back in. Because most people don't have a inability to know that it's right to be at a certain body weight. It's normally the mindset that goes into, oh, my body weight's trickling up, let me just not step on the scales. Let me just ignore it for a little bit and just have a good time. And then before you know it, that's 7 kilos, 8 kilos, 9 kilos, 10 kilos, and now they're back to where they were before because they didn't have this specific strategy. So here's how you go back on a diet after you've done the maintenance phase, which you will never really need to do in the next 20 years. Step number 1 is follow a weight range. So what I like to do is think about this. Give an inch, take a mile is a psychological fundamental that everyone takes the piss with. Everywhere. If you don't have a weight range and you don't have a set barrier of when you need to take action, you'll just let that trickle up until you start feeling really shit. As they say in medicine and hospitals, prevention is better than cure. And to be able to have a prevention, you need to have barriers, rules, set points to be able to work to as a triggering alarm to be like, actually, I need to do something about it. For example, CCTV. You have CCTV in your front garden with the light that goes on every time someone steps closer or within 5 to 10 meters of your front door. If that was on all of the time, that would be super, super annoying. But the lights flash on when you get within a certain range. And that creates an awareness, an alarm, and then you do something about it, or you know someone's going to come, or you know that someone's stealing your shit, especially in London. So what you need to do is set a parameter of when the alarm bell should ring off for the new person that you want to be. For me personally, and for clients within Autonomy, we like to set a 3 to 4 kilo range. Most of our clients get in really good shape, flat stomachs, love handles gone, and they just want to stay between there and a couple of kilos up to have a bit of wiggle room for ups and downs and lifestyle in one in general. I like to use the 4 kilo rule. So if I'm 70 kilos right now and I've finished my diet, when I get to 74 kilos, I will do something about it because that range keeps me in check. There will be very minimal difference between your visual changes at 70 and 71, and there might be some visual changes between 70 and 73. But when you start packing on 4 kilos, 5 kilos, 6 kilos, that's when you start feeling the pinch. And at that point, if you've left it too long and you've not took action with it, as humans, we like to psychologically detach. We like to not step on the scales. We like to not think about it. We just justify, oh, it's busy week, or, oh, I just need this. And then we start to rack up the points of body weight going up. So a 4 kilo range makes you super clear on when you step on that scales, which you should be weighing frequently. One of the biggest tools in research that shows people helps them stay in shape forever is legitimately stepping on the scales every day or 3 times a week. Do it, accept the consequences of stepping on the scales, and just get used to using that. It's a measure. It's you looking in your bank account on your Lloyd's app or your HSBC and going, oh, there's still money in there. Fantastic. Let me continue on my life. That's exactly the way it is. And what you do is when that 4 kilo range hits, you go, right, I need to do something about it now because I'm at the top of my range. And if I continue, I go into a place that I don't want to be, where I've been before that I don't enjoy. And even though you might think, oh, it's only half a kilo, that mindset is going to then just carry on to the next kilo, to the next kilo, to the next kilo, to the next kilo, until you are really unhappy, and then you're going to have to diet the whole 10 kilos off, which is going to take another 3 to 4 months, which you don't need to do. So 4 kilos is your set point, and you go, right, when I cross over that 74 kilo barrier and I go to 74.1, I don't act like it's okay, I make a change. Because if you create urgency with it, and you create a barrier, you have to act on it. So that's step number 1, 0 to 4 kilos. Step number 2 is quite simply, don't go on a diet. You just need to clean up the shit that you're doing that you know you're doing. So we both know that if you're at 70 and then you're at 74 in a 3 to 6 month period, you're not doing maintenance very well. You're either not found a method on a week-to-week basis that navigates your calories very well, maybe you're not doing your activity side of things, so you're not burning calories, or you're simply just taking the piss a little bit too much now that you've hit maintenance and you feel like you're a bad man and you feel like you're a boss bitch and you're doing all the sorts of badness of 3 dinners out a week and restaurants here and in starters and desserts. You don't need to go on a diet to solve that problem, because that problem is going to keep on going and you're going to be doing these diets every year if you don't solve the problem that's causing the weight gain. Now, it doesn't mean you have to be perfect. It doesn't mean that you want to always like kind of be diligent, but you have to know what moves the needle forwards or negatively and what doesn't move the needle forwards. For me, personal experience, I know at maintenance, I can get away with 2 meals out per week, and they're 2 main meals and a few drinks. And then the rest of the week, I have, a set amount of calories or a set amount of portion sizes across the day because I don't weigh my food or track my food. And I know that if I go over those 2 meals a week and they start getting a bit bigger, start doing double pizzas and starters and milkshakes, weight starts to creep up. So I don't need to go on a diet to get rid of that weight. I just need to not have the milkshake, the starters, and the 3 meals a week. And I need to start acting more intentional with my goal of being at maintenance. So your first step outside of weight range, and when you've got that, is don't go back on a diet. Just sort the shit out that you think and you're doing that is not conducive to the way that you maintained before. Because you can't always go in these cycles of overindulgent and dieting. That's called yo-yo dieting. Even if you've got the amazing results, you're still yo-yo dieting. So finding the set point between how many meals you can go out per week, or how less can you track or accurately have, or little bites that you can have, that doesn't take you to taking the piss and going way over. So that's step number 2. And step number 3 is once you sort that out and you start ticking off these boxes and rein it in a little bit more, you'll trickle back down underneath your number, and then you'll probably want to get back down to that lower position. So you're only dieting off 4 kilos, which is not too hard at all. Could be a 4-week diet. And that's my third point, is like set a deadline, 4 weeks. Nothing more. I don't want you to go on diets for 12 weeks, 11 weeks, for 16 weeks just to pull off 4 kilos. It's just not useful. You want to stay in a diet. If you look at the ratios, if you do a 4-week diet every 12 months, you're spending 48 weeks at maintenance and enjoying yourself, and you're spending 4 weeks at dieting to make up for the little overspill that you have. That's a really good ratio. I speak to coaches who are coaching you if you are working with a different company. I speak to loads of coaches and the people that you see on Instagram, and those guys diet 4 to 5 times a year because they can't do maintenance. 1 4-week diet every 52 weeks is a fantastic ratio. Think about this. If you only had to save money 4 weeks a year versus saving money constantly for 52 weeks, you'd be much happier, right? You'd be able to spend more time, more energy on the things that you actually want to. So spending 4 weeks of saving and banking is going to be much more useful for the other 48 that you get to enjoy and have a nicety with. Think about it that way. And what you simply do is that if you've been through a successful fat loss phase, you just go back to what you were doing before. And I know it sounds simple, but you have a framework. You have something that has been successful. If you're working with Autonomy, if you've been on a diet that's been juice diets, probably don't do that. But if you've been with Autonomy, or you've been with a coach that has been successful and it's actually useful, is you can just repeat what you did with them for 4 weeks and set your mind to it, and then just go back to what you're doing before and solve the problems of the extra overeating, and you'll be absolutely fine. You don't need to do any special measures. There's a reason why we actually don't coach people in this phase. So we don't have any clients that come back to us for a 4-week diet because they're doing it by themselves. If they're successful enough to leave Autonomy to get to the point where they've done the 6 phases and then we kick them out, they'll be successful. Oh my God, I can't say that fucking word. They will be successful enough to go on a 4-week diet by themselves. At that point, they don't need the accountability. And actually, I would argue and say that they shouldn't have the accountability, because in a year's time or 2 years' time, they're going to do the exactly 4-week diet again, and they're not going to have a coach, or they're not going to be able to do that. So they need to work on their own, and that is full autonomy at its finest. So doing your diet where you did 12K steps, 1,600 calories, gymming 4 days a week, and just doing that for 4 weeks will create the outcome that you want, and doing it consistently 7 days a week for 4 weeks. And then you're back at where you were before, for example, like the 70, and then you're back at maintenance to be able to then over time eventually move up to 74 again and repeat the process. Over time, over years, you will get better, and you should get better, because if you're working internally on yourself and getting better with the process, you should get to a point where you're able to do a whole year, 2 years, without going over that 74 kilo threshold, because you've navigated what it's like to be 74. If you were 92 before or 95 before, you're gonna have some pretty shit habits up there. But the more you practice these 70 to 74 kilo habits, the more you're gonna stay there. The more it becomes novel of what we're doing and normal of this is normal life right now. But sometimes those 92 kilo habits do come out, and you need to work on them over the years so that you're not constantly dieting between 74 and 70, and then dieting 3 times a year like most online PTs or personal trainers. So that's a quick one. 3 big tips. 1, 0 to 4 kilo ranger. When you hit that 4 kilo ranger, make it important and do something about it. Step number 2, don't diet. Simply sort your shit out from the stuff you're eating that you shouldn't be eating, that you need to solve to get back into maintenance. Once you do that, your weight will drop and that'd be perfect. And then step number 3 is if you want to go on the diet, going down from 74 to 70, for example, go and do exactly how you did the diet in the first place before you maintained, and just do it diligently for 4 weeks. Doesn't need to be special, doesn't need to be thing. If you think about it this way, you do 48 weeks of non-tracking and non-weighing, and then for 4 weeks a year, you weigh your food and track your food. It's not a bad ratio considering you're doing 48 weeks of not doing that. So my tips, perfect.